Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mack Story.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. So today we're going to wrap up this 3-part mini-series. I hope you've been following along. If not, for this one to make sense, you're going to back up and listen to episode 492 and 493. It'll make a whole lot more sense if you hear that one. Listen to those. If you haven't, this will still make some degree of sense. You'll still get some value out of it if you ain't got time to listen to those two, but you want to go ahead and dive into this one. So this one is, the title of this episode is Kids Need Love More Than Rules. And if you listen to the other two, you heard me talk about how I got it wrong with my son, Eric, quite a bit in his teenage years. But the title again, Kids Need Love More Than Rules. And it's about, I'm going to share with you John Maxwell's biggest lesson that I learned from John relative to this topic. And so let's dive in. I want to share a quote with you. And I got this quote. I remember sitting in this was probably in 2012 or 13, maybe 14. I can't remember. Some point in time back in those days, I did a lot of development training sessions in person with John Maxwell. And it was usually a multi-day event, about 3 days. And there were a lot of other speakers and coaches, mentors speaking on different topics. But this session was about 100 or so people. Not everyone got to go into this particular session, but I was one of the ones that was able to go in there with John, and he was just talking about family type issues and leadership at home, that sort of thing, and it was awesome. And he was talking about whatever he was talking about, and people taking notes and that sort of stuff. Maybe not paying attention 100% because they had their head down, writing notes and that sort of thing. All of a sudden, John started clapping. And he was clapping loud. He wanted to get everybody's attention. And he said, look at me. You got to know this. If you don't learn this, what I'm about to teach you is the most important parenting tip that you ever going to get in your life. And he had everybody's attention. He said, pay attention to me. Listen to me. Don't write it down now. I'll repeat it. You can write it down in a minute. Just listen to me. And he started off with this quote, which I didn't have to write it down. I probably did. I don't remember writing it down, but I'm sure I did. But this is one of those quotes that sticks with me. I just needed to hear it once, and it stuck. And this is what he said. I mean, it really resonated with me, and it relates to the last two episodes. It's why I'm kicking off with this episode. And he said this right here. Children need unconditional love more than they need direction. Pretty powerful. Children need unconditional love more than they need direction. And that's where I was getting it wrong. When Eric was a teenager, I wasn't giving him unconditional love. It was the love I was giving him was based on his behavior and things like that. And all I was good at was giving him direction. Nonstop direction. That's what I was about back then as a parent. Again, I had never heard this type of stuff I write about and talk about today. So that's the content text that I've been teaching this series in, was because I knew this one was coming. If you've been listening, you know I'm teaching you content out of my book, Defining Influence. And I hope you got enough value out of this. You want to dive into the book and actually go get the book and read it. But this is coming from chapter 6, what I'm teaching you today. Actually, page about 50 something out of about 250 pages in this book. And I'm just spreading out over time, mixing in some content from Defining Influence. Increasing your influence increases your options is the subtitle. And whether you go get it or not, whether you invest that money in developing yourself, doesn't make any difference. I'm giving you a free lesson right here. All you got to do is keep listening. But what I've been talking about the last 2 episodes, don't let that happen to you. If you're a parent, maybe you got young children, they're not teenagers yet, or Maybe you got teenagers. Maybe you're going through that grind like I was. I meet a lot of people who have teenagers, and they share some of their stories and their struggles, and they're the same ones I had. And what I know, they're in the same boat I was in. They've been missing this type of stuff I'm talking to you about. They too busy with life and hanging out and escaping a job maybe they don't like on the weekends and in the evenings, and they're not taking time to invest in and develop themselves as they should as people. So that's why I do this podcast, to help people do that. But don't let what happened to me happen to you. If it hasn't yet, you can prevent it. If it's happening now, you can fix it. If it's in the past, you can do some apologizing and work on yourself and rebuild the relationship, just like I did with Eric, because I lost that relationship. But the issues you may be having may not be with your child, maybe with your spouse, maybe a family member, could be a friend, a neighbor, a coworker. If you're really struggling with leading yourself well, it could be all those folks I just described. If you've already experienced these types of ruptured relationships and want to repair them or prevent this from happening to you in the future, I hope something I share on this podcast. This is episode 494. There's a lot of them back there already. You got hours and hours and hours and hours for free. All you got to do is listen to it. Recommend taking some notes, thinking about things, reflecting on things, improving your life. But that's what I hope. I hope something I share will help you choose to be more proactive. You know, as I share, as I record this episode last week, actually earlier this week, Rhea and I were in Orange, Texas, talking to a group of about 50 or 60 workers and their leaders, support people, basically a mix of everyone at a chemical plant out there called Solstice Advanced Materials, right along the coast out there. Do a lot of chemical process stuff. They make products for the wax industry. They actually make wax pellets. And we'll be back as I record this. We'll be back next Monday. We're getting ready in another day or so to head out. I'm recording this on a Friday, so we were there last Monday. We're going to be there again next Monday. And what I was just talking to you is, it's the first time we've ever been there. Last week. Or earlier this week, I should say. And we spoke to 60 or 70 folks. We didn't speak to everybody. That's why we're going back Monday. We're going to speak to the other, I think there's 40 or 50 more people. They couldn't put everybody in there at one time. So we're going back. We're going to speak with them twice. But for everybody in each group, it's the first time they've ever heard us. For many of them, it's the first time they've ever heard this type of content that I'm going to be talking about. So I'm excited that the Solstice leaders have the character to invest in developing their people. But when we first go and speak somewhere like that, what I just told you is it's our whole intention of being in the room. Just like I told you, I want to share some stuff to help you choose to be more proactive, meaning take responsibility, get better. And we'll be speaking for 2 hours Monday, just like we did last Monday. And that's our mission there. Is to get the people in the room to look in the mirror and want to get better. It ain't to teach a whole bunch of points. We're going to share a lot of points, share a lot of principles, but more importantly, we're going to try to connect with the folks, share a lot of stories, because our mission definitely always on the first introduction to this type content, when we first meet people, the goal is we got to get buy-in from them to want to improve themselves. Nothing else matters. A lot of leaders, they want you to come start teaching point, doing more like a training. And that's not what we do. That's what they need to do after we leave. They need to do that after we get the people bought into, hey, let's get better. The people who actually want to get better will buy into the leaders, helping them get better. But that's our mission. So anyway, it's the same thing I'm trying to do with you here. But luckily for me, I started studying the principles of leadership. Remember, I got it so wrong with my son. But when he was 17, I discovered and started studying the principles of leadership. I became intentional. Started improving me. and was able to successfully rebuild and restore my relationship with Eric. You may have to do that with relationships in your life, but the focus is not on the other folks, it's focus on yourself. Get yourself right, and then you can figure out what to do with his other relationships. You can either repair them or you can decide they can't be repaired and move on. But you got to get yourself right. If it can be repaired, you got to do the work on you before you can repair it. Because if you were capable of repairing it, you would have already repaired it if it's capable of being repaired. But if it's capable of being repaired and you haven't repaired it, that means you ain't capable of doing it yourself. As you are today, you got to learn, you got to grow something. So just talking about that relationship with Eric being restored. Yesterday, Rhea and I were down in Auburn, Alabama, and Eric's had the ribbon cutting with the Chamber of Commerce there for his business, and he's already killing it, and he's about to kill it and take it to a new level. But he started his own construction business last year, or maybe a year before. I think it was last year, though, when he really kicked it off, and he's been talking about it a little while. And then he joined the Chamber and officially had a ribbon cutting and that sort of thing yesterday. Had about 40 or 50 people down there. I don't really remember. Somewhere around at least 40. And it's cool to see him doing that. And we were there excited for him. And, I shared with some people I met there about this right here, what I've been talking to you about, my ruptured relationship with him, how he used to hate me from 15 to 19. I tell that story all over the place. And then usually there's somebody who's interested, so I get to tell some more of the story. And that's what I got to do yesterday. But the point is, he's about to be 35. I rebuilt that relationship when he was 19. It's been strong and steady ever since. You can do the same thing. But today I give him unconditional love, and I don't focus on the directions too much. If he wants some direction from me, guess what he'll do? He'll ask. I got all kind of ideas and thoughts I could share with him if I wanted to, and I do want to, but I don't do it unless he asks. I just give him unconditional love, even as an adult child. But I should have been doing it back when he was younger. But I improved. You can always improve too. You're doing it now, as I did when I started making real progress. And I was reading books written by others wanting to help me. You listen to a podcast recorded by me wanting to help you. And I appreciate it. And I hope I'm doing you some good. If I am, share this tell people about the podcast. Share an episode with somebody that you know will resonate with them. Don't just tell them go listen to the podcast. Don't share some random episode. If you know somebody going through something, look through these 500 or so episodes. Find one that actually they might need to listen to. You listen to it first and think about them from their frame of reference. See if you think they'll get some good out of it. And then copy the link and text it to them or send it to them by email. Somehow get it to them and say, hey, I listened to this. It helped me. Thought it might help you. But I'm still working hard on me, and I always will be. You've heard me say it 1,000,000 times if you're a regular listener. I read leadership development and personal growth content every day. Every day means for the last 18 years for me. And it will be every day until I die. Just the way it is. I'll always be under construction. I know where the root cause of my problem is. I mean, all my problems. It's in the mirror where it always has been. I can always do something to improve as long as I'm willing to work on the root cause. Capital M-E with an exclamation point. You figure that one out, your life's going to get better. You keep thinking it's somebody else's the problem, odds are your life's going to stay the same. You may change the people involved in your life, but your life's going to stay the same because you ain't changing. Whatever problems you had in the last relationship, you're going to have in the next relationship. That's the way it works. Till you figure out the root cause of what's wrong in your world, which is you, and for me, it's me, a whole lot ain't going to change. But knowing what I know about being proactive, the first thing I should have done in the situation, back talking about with Eric in the last 2 episodes I shared with you in this series, is I should have used the space between stimulus and response to choose my response based on valuing our relationship, based on making sure I was providing unconditional love to my son, as I shared with you about the quote from John. After the stimulus, we can choose our response instantly as I did. Or we can pause, reflect, and think before choosing our response, as I should have done. Anybody needing to make an adjustment, that's what they got to do. They got to develop that proactivity muscle so that when something happens, they don't just respond instantly based on their feelings. They got to be able to pause, reflect, and think about their values, and then respond once they come up with a response that's aligned with that. It seems simple now for me, but back then, what I'm talking to you about was a foreign thought. I ain't ever thought about this kind of stuff I'm telling you about now. I didn't know there was a space. I didn't understand I really had a choice. To say I was ignorant about all the things I talk about on my podcast and write in my books, to say I was ignorant would be an understatement. I didn't want to know what I didn't know. I thought I already knew it all. Pretty sad condition to be in. But I know a lot of people like that. Sometimes they reach out and talk to me in person, sometimes on the phone. But they're out there. I ain't the only one suffering from me syndrome. There's a lot of people out there. Before I could change what I thought in general and how I thought about stimulus and response, I had to change what I believed. And for you to make your life better, you got to change what you believe, because what you believe got you to exactly where you are today. So we all got some beliefs that are not accurate. We think they are, but they're not. I'll give you an example about, related to this little series I'm doing right now, the last two. I believed all of it was Eric's fault. That's what I believed. I know better now, but I didn't then. But it wasn't his fault. He only had partial responsibility for the situation. But I had 100% responsibility for me, my actions, and the consequences that flowed from my actions. I was responsible for all that. But I was constantly blaming him for everything, including all that. I was responsible for not having developed myself as a high-impact leader in advance of becoming a parent. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I wasn't really interested in learning. So I give you tremendous credit. You somehow you already know about this type of content. That's why you're listening. Or maybe this was your first episode, your first exposure. Somebody shared it with you, but you're still listening. So keep going. But I was the parent, the leader, the influencer. Good or bad, right or wrong, I was the parent. He was the child. I acknowledge he had responsibility too, but only for his actions and consequences that flowed from his actions, not for mine. He was not responsible for my actions and my consequences. If I would have been a much better parent from the start, I know he would have been a much better teenager and a much better child. There is no doubt about that. Well, as a teenager, the last story I was telling you in the last episode, he was 16 at the time. I was 37. Ultimately, it was up to me to be responsible. I was the leader. At the time, though, I was leading at a very low level. Today, I'm leading at a much higher level. But I still make mistakes. But I get it right a whole lot more than I did in the past. And I have the responsibility to be sure I blame the right person whenever things go wrong. I am the one to blame when things go wrong in my life. I am responsible. That's what leaders do. They take responsibility. If you're familiar with Jocko Willink, he's got a book on it called Extreme Ownership. That's what it's about. Owning the outcome of life at home or at work or in traffic. Doesn't make any difference. You got to look in the mirror and say, I'm responsible. That's what all my books are. If you're familiar with Jocko's term, extreme ownership, all of my books are about extreme ownership. They're in different contexts based on what the book's about, but it's all about taking extreme ownership. What I'm talking to you today about in this 3-part series is taking extreme ownership as a parent. You're responsible. I was responsible. When we think someone else is the problem, their very thought is the problem. Don't miss that. When we think someone else is the problem, that very thought is the problem. It's an indicator that we don't know we're the problem. Transferring responsibility is the problem. When we think we are responsible, we then are positioned to become the solution for the problem, which is us. There may be somebody in your life causing problems. Why are they in your life? You're responsible. Remove them, remove yourself. Could be a boss, could be somebody else, could be a friend. Who knows who it is? You're responsible. Anybody in your life is only in your life because you're around them. You don't have to be around them, no matter who it is, no matter how hard it is. Or maybe you need to stay around them, but you need to change as a person. Maybe you're thinking they're the problem, but if you'd actually changed, they wouldn't be a problem because you're the actual problem. That's what I learned about me. A key point to understanding and living a proactive life is knowing what it means to take responsibility. For me, taking responsibility required a massive shift as I went from blaming everyone else when things went wrong to looking in the mirror and saying to myself, no matter what goes wrong, somehow, some way, I'm responsible for making my situation better. If I value others and want to lead, remember, leadership is influence. I could say if I value others and want to influence them, which is the same as leading them positively at a higher level, I'm responsible for helping make the situation better for them too. So as a leader, I got to make my situation better, leading myself. But as a leader of others, I got to lead myself in a way that allows me to be positioned to help others lead themselves better and make the situation better for them too. That's what I'm doing right now with you. I've led myself in a way to help my life get better, but I'm trying to lead myself in a way to help you help your life get better. That's why I'm recording this episode, all these 500 or so episodes that I'm about to have here. Again, this is episode 494. 500 is coming quick. When we're not valuing others as much as we value ourselves, control, being right, blaming, transferring responsibility, and on, we are choosing to be reactive, and we are operating at a very low level of leadership or influence, whichever word you want to use. That's synonyms. They mean the same thing. Leadership and influence, same thing. One word definition. We must live with the consequences of our choices. We don't get what we want out of life. We get what we choose during our life. Our choices lead to our circumstances. Yes, other things happen outside of our control. I'm talking about the things we can choose. See, a lot of people want to blame those things that happen outside of their control. Like the rest of their life, they didn't have any choice. Things happen outside of our control. That's life. But most of our life is within our control. And we got to own the choices we're making in life. And it may be the choices we make about something that happened outside of our control. As soon as that's over, we back in charge again. If something happens outside of our control, at some point it stops happening and we're in charge again. But even when it's happening, when something's happening outside of our control, we're still in control of how we're dealing with it. We are always responsible to some degree in every situation. High impact leaders take responsibility because they know the impact it has on their influence. Had I paused back in those days I told you about in the last couple episodes with Eric, when I got it all wrong, had I paused and asked myself, what do I value in this situation? With the understanding of natural laws and principles as I understand them today, which I didn't then, but I'm saying if I did, I would ask myself what I value in this situation. And I would have said, I value helping Eric grow and make better decisions while strengthening our relationship. Because that's what I would say today. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do ever since I started understanding this. Then I would have paused until I came up with a response in alignment with my values. That's what I would have done back in the days that I shared with you if I knew then what I know now. I can't go back and change that, but I can look back, I can reflect and say, okay, what would I have done different? Everything. I would have done everything different, which would have changed the outcome because my choices would have been different. My values would have been different. So when I make a different choice, I get a different consequence. So everything would have changed. So stop and think. When someone wants to help you for your benefit, do they build trust or create distrust? Everybody knows they build trust. Does their influence increase or decrease? When people build trust with us, their influence increases. So you got to think about, are you trying to help people for their benefit? If you are, you're building trust. If it's for your benefit, you're creating distrust. They feel manipulated. So I'm going to leave you with this. Be proactive. Take responsibility. How you choose to influence others today determines if you get to influence them in the future. Who we are matters. Why we do what we do matters. Why we say what we say matters. Hope you found value in this 3-part series. Next week, you'll hear Rhea and I. She actually invited me to be on her podcast. She got a new podcast, Grace Every Day is the name of her podcast. It's for Christian wives of blue-collar guys. And she actually invited me on, and we talked about our personal relationship, how we influence each other through our behaviors and our actions and our values and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of behind the curtain scene on mine and Rhea's relationship. But I was on her podcast. But what we're going to do is next week, I'm going to release the audio version of her podcast here on my podcast. So it'll be episode 495. And if you want to actually watch the video of that episode, it's on her podcast. Go to the Grace Everyday podcast and you'll be able to find that. And so hope you found value in today's episode. Hope you found value in next week's episode. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mack Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mack's books, programs, special offers, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.